Hi, Tirzah. Welcome to another new brilliant class of yours.
Thank you, Carolyn.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to Ancestral Healing through the Wisdom of the Kabbalah. When Tirzah created this class, I said, really, I'm taking this because a more timely class could not have been created. I am astounded at the brilliance of this class. Well done.
We'll see what Spirit has in store for us. I think it's going to be good.
I do think that wisdom is guided to come in at certain times. I really do. I really believe that the whole world, the non-physical world, the holy world speaks, breathes with us, and it tells us what we need to know. And there are people who are, um, how do I say, receivers of that, and you are one of them.
Mm.
And the first class, everybody, is what is Kabbalah? Kabbalah. Come on.
Either one
Okay.
works.
And how can it help me heal? And what a rich question. So I'm just going to turn it over to you,
Okay.
and I'll see you at the end.
Okay. Thank you, Carolyn. It's a delight to be back with you all, your team. And thank you for the warm welcome. And welcome to each and every one of you who are joining us on this journey. I'm excited to have people from literally all parts of this globe, of this world, wherever you are tuning in from today, whether in real time or asynchronously, a little bit later. We all share in the unfolding daily news on planet Earth right now. We are sharing in the cascades of crises and wars that are befalling us. And so, wherever you are geographically, however you are personally touched by the heart-wrenching events of our day, I invite you to bring your undaunted self, your authentic self, your unabashed self, your whole self with all of your questions to this course, and let these deep materials that I will be sharing speak to you where you are at. In this course, I'm going to be presenting material from very ancient mystical tradition known as the Kabbalah, also known as Kabbalah. Either one is okay. We'll talk about what that is today. And that mystical work, which we will start to unpack, is in conversation with the powerful, also ancient, yet very new science and body of work called ancestral healing, also known as intergenerational healing. In Europe, we hear more transgenerational healing. All of those mean the same thing. So please don't worry. This may be your maiden voyage, so to speak, into this work, into the work of ancestral healing. Or you may be a longtime student. You may be very adept. You're welcome here, and you should be here. Likewise, for some of you, this may be your first taste of this esoteric science called Kabbalah. And I know some of you are seasoned scholars and even rabbis here with us. I guarantee you that this synthesis, this is new, bringing these two bodies of work together to inform each other. It is new, it is powerful. And my intention is to weave from the realm of ideas to the realm of inner experience and application. I'm a kind of teacher, if you haven't studied with me, it's about experience. It's about taking it inside and making it real. The material will come alive for you and embodied. And I'm hoping, it's my prayer, it'll be radically relevant. So I'm going to ask you right off two things I'd like you to have handy. One is a glass of water, fresh water or tea, whatever beverage you're drinking and sipping as we go through this potent material is medicinal. Sipping, I learned from a powerful teacher of mine, counteracts the effects of fear and alarm in the system, because our course deals with stories pertaining to powerful things like traumas and historical ruptures in ourselves and in our families. It's advised to we'll keep flushing and calming our systems. And your journal or a notebook. You could take notes on your laptop or on the back of an envelope. I don't care, but it's really important, a way to reflect and then let your nervous system write, coming out of your hands, your ideas is also very healing, and you'll want to have those notes. So we are here to face and feel and to integrate some topics that can be hard and challenging. And they live in history. Our principle with this work is not to skip or override or bypass them. We've been trained by our culture and many times in our families to push things aside. But in the work of ancestral healing, the goal is not to push anything aside. It's to metabolize it and to transform it, to alchemize it. It's a new word. It's a legit word. It's in the dictionary. We alchemize it. We transmute it. We take our wounds and we transmute them into wisdom, wounds into wisdom. And it is an alchemical process. It's a magical process. But the work requires something. And some of you know what I'm about to say. It requires self-care and self-attunement. And because it is powerful and potent work, it requires that we tend our nervous systems, because sometimes we get emotional and then we want to not skip the emotions, but we want to process them, particularly at this time on planet Earth when there is so much upset. There is so much war. There is just trauma in the making as we speak. So you'll see that self-care will be a thread that will run through all the beads and all the nuggets, the pearls of this course. We'll keep coming back to our bodies, and that's for your sake. Okay, so speaking of self-care, let's do that right now. We'll begin every module with an embodied practice, and that helps us occupy our bodies, learn from our bodies, from the wisdom of our bodies, and also it helps us to regulate our systems. When I say regulate our systems, that means we might have waves of feeling or pain or memories that get us breathing fast, and so we want to integrate them, be fully aware of where they live in our body, be able to regulate our nervous system and our emotional body. So I'm going to ask, when we do this at the beginning of every module, please don't skip it and don't tune it out, because it's going to help you. It'll help you repair yourself. It'll help your nervous system calm itself so that you can be more receptive to the materials that await us. Okay. Would you, having said all that, please sit back in your seat. This particular one is good to sit up, not lie down, if you can. If you're in bed because you're healing or you're not well, please just lie back. That's totally fine. We're working today with a Kabbalistic understanding that our nervous system is a tree of life. We are the tree of life, deeply rooted in the here and now world, and also at the same time, we have roots in heaven. We belong in a profound unseen dimension as well. So let's sit back, feel your back body for a moment. Feel the back of your neck, the space between your shoulder blades. Soften your belly. And let all those little muscles in your face start to relax. All those tiny muscles that we hold together, being someone in the world, just let them as if dissolve for a moment. You can close your eyes. Your shoulders are getting heavier and softening. And as you breathe out, notice that it naturally goes down. Breathe out your mouth. Make a sound if you like. Sigh it out. Let tension go and notice that it's dropping downward into Mother Earth. Letting all your stress, the stress of your shoulders, the stress of your body drop downward. Imagining that your trunk, your torso is the trunk of a tree. And from your pelvis and legs and feet, roots are burrowing down, down, down from your pelvic floor, from your feet, from your sits bones down, burrowing down through the floor that holds you. Even if you're on the 35th floor, it's burrowing down, looking for Mother Earth below you. And she is there to receive your roots. Imagine that those roots are drilling down, burrowing down 10, 20, 30 feet down. Just imagine, extend your imagination and imagine those roots burrowing down like the big oak tree spreading out under the surface of Mother Earth to ground you, to stabilize you, to hold you in place during this lifetime. And also those roots bring up nourishment from her, from the Great Mother. They feed us from below. Just stay with me. Just keep putting down your roots. Noticing what comes up, what imagery comes up, and checking it out, noticing everything. You might be spreading out through the mycelial network there, and little animals might be there. Little bugs sharing the space, little creatures who say, yes, you belong here. At the same time that we burrow down, we have dual consciousness, and we know that at the top of our trunk are great branches, great roots that go right into heaven. So bring your attention upward now to the crown of your head. Sometimes it helps to touch yourself on the top of your head. And imagine a little skylight opening and branches taking root above in heaven. With roots in heaven. That's another Kabbalistic, also a Hindu teaching that we have roots in heaven. Letting those branches above reach all the way into the unseen dimensions. Providing nourishment from the heaven above, where our naked eye can no longer see, because this is a place of heaven. It's the dimension that we know is there. This is where we find our ancestors, where we find our soul abode. And just saying yes today, just saying yes to roots in heaven and roots in earth. We are the bridge. We are the bridge. And letting light start to stream in through our skylight. With your next breath, just open to the light streaming in, and join me for an invocation as we call upon the great mystery who called us into the world at this time. None of this is a mistake. None of it's an accident. That great creative urge who called us in, of which we are a part. We humbly call ourselves into your presence, Holy One. We humbly face you. We thank you. We ask you to shine your wise spirit light upon each and every person who is hearing these words as we embark on this healing journey to awaken ourselves, to heal ourselves, to assist in the great tide of transformation that we're living through. And as we breathe and as that light is open and streaming now into us, into every cell, all the way through us, we open channels. We open channels consciously and wittingly to the unseen realms, asking that our wise and well ancestors and guides, the elders of all our respective lineages, be present with us right now, today, as we listen, as we convene our circle, whether it's now or asynchronously, that everybody who's part of this journey is assisted. Please bless our work, protect us from discordant or disquieting or distracting energies so that we can be agents of healing for ourselves and our families. With a mystical ancient maxim, I begin this chorus. L'shem yichud kudsha brichu u'shchinte b'tchilu urchimu liyached shem yudhe b'vavhe b'chud hashlem b'shem kol Beit Israel. For the sake of the unification of all the broken parts, fragments of the whole, we undertake this journey to reunite the broken parts of the Godhead, the broken parts of humanity, the broken parts within ourselves and our families. And we do this with love, with awe, for the sake of all God wrestlers everywhere. And if you want to sign on to that prayer, to everything we've said so far, please just say in your own way, Amen, Amen, Amin, Aho. I sign on to that. What are your language? Thank you. Thank you. We're going to sing that. We're going to sing that very ancient maxim at the end of this module as we go into our ritual space. And as you'll see in just a moment, every module will begin with prayer and embodiment and end with a ritual practice. So very, very personal, experiential, as I've said. So Vince, I think we're ready to welcome to the grand view that both these traditions provide us, both Kabbalah and the ancestral healing. We'll go to the next slide and just see what you can expect at every module. The embodiment practice and a prayer, core teachings drawing from both these traditions, a guided ritual, as I've just said, to enter what we call the imaginal realm, the ancestral realm in our case, the ancient realms. We're going to be wanting to do personal reflection because you're going to experience things and have insights or questions. And so please do write them down as we go. And then I hope to join you on the community page on myss.com, and we will have more discussion there. And then, and I'm so grateful, Carolyn will jump on in the end to make some final comments. And I better plug in here. Just noticed that. Okay, next slide. Let's turn to very, very briefly, turn to our journals right now to scribble down what internal questions or healing possibilities drew me to this course. And we do that, just writing it down is really good exercise. It's helpful to put it down because it starts to help the energy take shape and form for you uniquely when you write down your particular, this is why I'm here. I will hold on to that because at the end of the course, you'll see how far you've come. Good. So just take that moment, reflect in. I want to know, I want to heal, I want to learn. What drew you here? Okay. And now we'll go on. You can keep writing if you need to. I'll just share the two core readings that we'll be drawing from for this course. Next, Vince. Wounds into Wisdom, which is my latest book about intergenerational trauma and healing it from my research around the world, and a book that I wrote much longer ago, about 19 years ago, came out The Receiving, which is about Jewish women mystics. It's basically a Kabbalah, a study into Kabbalah through the feminine lens, through the lens of depth psychology and the feminine principle. Okay, back to me. I want to say why this work now? Why is it so critical now? These two traditions, I have a love for both of those. They give this expansive view into what we're doing here on planet Earth. And as you will see, the Kabbalah teaches us that nothing is random, nothing is accidental. Each and every one of us came here with a soul mission. And there is so much repair and healing to be done within the scope of our lives. And when we begin to widen our lens to take in not only me, but take in the matrix of me, the ecosystem that brought me into being, my family, and then widen it even larger to see the ecosystem of my bloodlines and my ancestries, we see the same thing. There is much healing and repair work to do. Now, once we wake up to this grand view, we see the places in ourselves, in our past, in our families that have become knotted up. We're going to be talking a lot about this, or dried up, or have stopped flowing, or have been flooded. They're just, the ecosystem isn't healthy. And we become healers, especially now. I want to say a word about that. Why now? When we look through the wide angle lens at the world, we see so many collective histories that have been denied or left neglected. I'm talking about big mythic systems where we've allowed unhealthy thinking, misguided myths, misguided belief systems like racial supremacy, white supremacy, ethnic discrimination, dominance, colonization, and patriarchal dominance is another whole mythic system that we're still fighting. Patriarchal abuses against women, against the earth, against the most vulnerable on planet Earth, religious abuses. I'm only naming a few, but these and more are screaming for attention now in our day, in our lifetimes. And why is that? Because all at once, these bills are coming due, the unpaid bills, and we have to turn to face them. Now, if everything I said is overwhelming, yeah, it is. None of us can do this gigantic work to repair injustices of history. That would be just impossible for any one person to do. But what we can do is what we're going to do in this course, which is to find in our own lives the karmic patterns, the trauma patterns and histories in our lives and in our lineages, and ask, where has the river stopped flowing? This river of spirit, where are there ice flows in the river of my bloodlines? Where are there painful knots in the history of my family that have perhaps been buried? They're secrets now. They're injustices that your family and ancestry endured. In many cases, our ancestors committed injustices. And that is like an ice flow in the river. It stops the works. It affects our health. And that's what we know. We're going to talk about some neuroscience and some epigenetic science in this course as well. That can affect the progeny, that can affect our descendants, it can affect sensitive members in our generation and our children's generation and our grandchildren's generation. So when we face these traumatic histories, when we face these knots, that's what each one of us can do: face them and shed compassion on them and learn about them. And as soon as we turn the light of our attention, the light of consciousness, the light of our hearts onto what has gone on in our own lineages, then those ice flows, as it were, I'm using that as a metaphor, begin to melt down and the river starts to flow again. And I've been doing this for many years now. I can tell you miraculous stories, and I will, about just turning to face, just uncovering those, turning over stones, family secrets, and looking at things that have not been looked at, that have been hushed, that produce incredible well springs of healing in a family. I come to this work also, many of you know, and in those 2 books, my story is written. I won't go into it too much now, but please know that this work is deeply personal to me. It's not just head stuff. I come from 2nd-generation Holocaust survivors, many secrets in my family that I've had to dig up and unbury and face. And I've lived this incredible health that comes from that, and synchronicity that comes. Spirit is happy when we do this work, and you feel spirit shining on you and smiling on you. Okay, enough said there. I want to go back to our slides and ask the question, what is Kabbalah? So you may know nothing about it, but Kabbalah is a Hebrew word, ancient Hebrew word. Kabbalah comes from the word to receive. It's a word that means the receiving. We are going to receive. We are receiving, as in a transmission from spirit, a message, a tradition. This is an oral tradition originally. Now things are written down in books, but it was a deeply, a profoundly mystical tradition given from one generation to the other. My book, The Receiving, is about how women were discluded from that oral tradition, but they had their own tradition and they broke into the mystical tradition. Anyway, that's a whole other story. We won't get sidetracked. But Kabbalah is a word that we'll be using a lot. Just think receiving. We're going to be receiving through the roots in heaven, through our skylight. We're going to be receiving information. We're going to be receiving healing power in this course. Next slide. Another word that you'll want to know is the word tikkun. Tikkun. And what that means, and we'll be talking about that today, it's repair, spiritual repair work. I love that graphic, by the way, that so beautiful. The flowering heart. One of the great mystics of the Kabbalistic tradition is, the great one is Rabbi Isaac Luria from the 16th century of northern Galilee. He was called the Holy Lion, the Ari HaKadosh, and he spoke about this repair work. And so let's go to the next one. And this is a bit of a, you don't have to just listen for the words that speak to you. No day or hour that has ever existed from the beginning of time is comparable to any other day or hour. Likewise, no person that has ever lived can be compared to any other human being since the creation of the first human onward. Here's the crux. Each individual is incomparably unique. No one can do the work, the repair work, the tikkun of their fellow human. That clarity can only be determined by you, by the means of your era, your day, your hour, as well as the unique imprint of that person, of you. Now, what does it mean, unique imprint? The idea in this Kabbalistic tradition, this mystical tradition, is that each one of us is a face of God. Each one of us is a facet of this great crystal, you could say. Let's say that God. What is God? Good grief. Many of us are suffering from the post-God stress disorder because it's been contaminated. That word has been contaminated. What I mean by God is the totality of consciousness, the oneness of consciousness. And what Kabbalah comes to teach us that each one of us is absolutely vital, because each one of us brings a piece, a facet of the puzzle, a piece of the puzzle to the whole. And this world is a broken place, as we're going to hear a lot about that. Vince, you can come back to me. Thank you. This world is broken, and it requires each one of us. God needs us to bring our tikkun, to do our repair work, so that contributes to the whole. So each one, everybody hearing these words, you're a reflection of God. You're unique, just the way you are in your authenticity, not, being good, being you. And each one of the 8 billion of us, members of humanity, no matter how rough or how privileged or how handicapped or how talented, whatever you are, we come into the world with a tikkun, with a sacred purpose. You may not know what that purpose is. Don't worry about that. You may not know till much later in life, and maybe never. But the point is that your soul comes from wholeness. It comes with a knowing. It comes with a yes. As we are going to see, the story some of you heard me tell that ancient midrash, the legend from Talmud about being in utero and your mother's belly and having cosmic consciousness. And so that's where we're coming from here, that we are here to remember who we are, because we have God consciousness latent in ourselves. Okay, we'll go back to the slides now. Next slide. Jung was very syntonic. His whole philosophy was Kabbalah. And at the end of his life, he said, "Oh my God, the Kabbalists knew, they prescribed my whole philosophy." The privilege of a lifetime, Jung said, is to become who you truly are. That's Carl Jung right there. Next slide. And Jung, I don't know about Jung, but Jungians, people who followed him, like James Hillman, talked a lot about Plato's parable of the acorn. Who here has ever heard that? It's a beautiful story about every acorn is inscribed with a code, with a picture of a small nugget of a picture of what it might look if all the conditions are correct, if nobody crunches that acorn underfoot, or if it doesn't get washed away, if it has the conditions, what it will look like at the end of its life, or at the fullness of its life, deeply rooted, many branched, healthy, and providing beauty and health to the ecology. And so just like every acorn, Plato said, that is inscribed with what it may be, so each and every one of us has what Jung would call a latent self. The latent self, that means the part of us that we must make manifest. We have to bring it into the world. We have to remember who we are uniquely and contribute that. And if that sounds like a tall order, it's really just about being your full self, being your whole self, coming and doing this alchemical work together. Okay, I could talk about this, but I think we will go on and go to the next word, which is a word I learned from Jean Houston, but it's a fantastic word. Many people don't know it. Entelechy, and within, and telos, aim or goal. This is the vital principle that is encoded in each acorn, in each of us, that guides us and goads us. Guides and goads, important. I would put that in. That guides and goads our development toward a specified end, which is toward the oak tree that we are meant to be, the full-bodied and authentic self that we are meant to be, that looks like us, that is us, not somebody else, but us, delivering our talents, our uniqueness into the world. Okay, let's come back to me. Thank you, Vince. Let's take a breath and have a little sip of water. Please do remember to scribble down comments or confusions or questions at this point. As I say that, these are big ideas, big ideas. They're the confluence of Jung and depth psychology and Kabbalah and ancestral healing. All of these systems overlap in this place So you can read philosophers and poets and psychologists from all eras and camps talk about these ideas. This is a way of expressing that we have an interior matrix, a soul matrix, a wholeness, a soul's code, as James Hillman calls it, that wants to unfold. And I know I'm mixing my metaphors here, but that wholeness, that latent self, will be dropping breadcrumbs throughout our lives, giving us synchronicities or perhaps dreams or body symptoms that will lead us on a path that we can only see. Soren Kierkegaard would say that we can only read, a life can only be read at the end, looking backwards, where we see that, oh, there was, that got me to here, and that got me to this teacher, and that teacher got me here. And we can see that there were breadcrumbs, and that's the soul's code, because the soul and nature itself wants us, is pulling us to what Thomas Merton called our hidden wholeness, our hidden wholeness. And Denise Levertov called it the quiet mystery that lives inside of us. It's like it has a magnetic pull to it's like an irresistible compulsion, Jung called it, to become what we are, what one is. Okay, so I want to share how Kabbalah works with that journey from latent to manifest, from that inner wholeness, that hidden wholeness, to that full oak tree. Let's go to the next slide, Vince. Thank you. That's it. So here is one of many versions of the tree of life. It's a little you'll see other ones. To me, this is a little stiff, but it's colorful and beautiful. And it shows us that the lower circle right here on the bottom, which is Malchut, which is our embodiment in the divine feminine, and she brings us into our bodies. That's our ani, that's our I-ness. It's our ego self, which is very required. We do not, in these systems, we don't want to kill the ego or get rid of it. God forbid, we need it. It's our chariot, our container, our sacred temple. So we need this ego self, but we start at the bottom where we see ani, which is Hebrew for I, my individual small self, and we're working up all the way to the top where it says ayin. Now, those of you who, you can even tell if you don't know Hebrew, those are the same letters all together, the same letters, and the ayin is the expansive self. It's really the sacred nothingness that we all must become in order to become individuated. So we're moving from ani to ayin. We're changing the letters around as we go. And we'll come back to the tree of life, which we have been embodying. We will be embodying it more. And go to the next slide, which shows us the central book of the Kabbalah, the book of splendor. In Hebrew, it's the Zohar. You may have heard of it. And the Zohar tells us that there are 3 levels of the human soul, and they have 3 names. And here we go. Now I want you to grab your journal because we're going to be looking at the next slide. There we go. And we begin at the nefesh soul. That's my chi, my bioenergetic body, my appetite for life. It's my vitality, my bushy tail. It's my P and V. It's like my vitality. All of that is my nefesh soul. The Kabbalah teaches that is part of our soul. We want that to be healthy. We want it to be strong. It's our container. It's the bottom of the tree. It's the ani. So would you just do for just a moment, would you check in and just ask, how am I in this facet of myself today, right now, this month, my nefesh, my body appetite for life. Am I beleaguered? Am I tired? Is my health poor? Do I need to refresh, reboot? Do I need to eat better, exercise? What is it? What do you know about your nefesh? Just do a little check-in, a little barometer there. Scribble a few words, just a check-in. And maybe it's simple. Maybe it's on a 1 to 10. My nefesh is 6. I haven't been sleeping. I've been irritable because I've just not sleeping enough, or I haven't been exercising. Whatever it is, just scribble down as we move to ruach. Ruach literally means wind or breeze. It's the breath energy that moves through us. It's our emotional body. This is our heart and our most heartfelt feelings and connections to others. It's all about touching and being touched, loving and being loved. It's also about poetry and beauty and music. And our connection to love itself. How am I want you just to ask yourself right now for just a moment, how are you right now in your ruach body, in your emotional body? And this is where loneliness lives. And this is where excitement to be with others lives. This is where I wish I had more friends. I'm isolated lives. COVID killed many of our ruach souls. It was very hard. And now post-COVID, how are you doing? Are you making connections? Are you getting filled up? We'll come back to this, of course. And finally, we have neshama soul, the mental body. This is where our thoughts and our beliefs, our attitudes, our ideals live, where higher mind resides. Now, this is also when we have big paradigm shifts, like we're going through right now in the world, where things that we thought were solid are no longer solid, where things are institutions or whole countries are under attack or are attacking. What is going on in the world? And I am getting shaken up. My belief system is getting shaken up. So where are you right now in your neshama soul, your sense of what is true? We're going to make all of this very, very sort of personal in a bit. In case you're wondering, what about the reason I feel so intensely for others, so connected to those in my family and beyond, sometimes more for others who are not in my family. Let's go to the next slide. There are 2 more levels that are considered the transpersonal levels. A lot of people don't know about these. This is more esoteric of the esoteric. Chaya is the shared or group soul. It's the shared group soul. It's each person who comes into this life. We've said yes at a soul level to coming here. By the way, you said yes to coming with a particular tikkun, a particular piece of the puzzle, a particular piece of repair work that you're contributing to the whole. And each of us also belongs to a group soul that shares the overarching purpose or tikkun that you've come to fulfill. So you might feel incredibly close to a teacher or a spiritual group or to a cohort of some kind, or just individuals or a family. That's because you have shared a shared group soul. And then finally, Yechida is beyond, that's really transcendental plane, where we no longer hold our individual identities, but we're part of a much, much vaster God field, we call it. Okay, not to worry about that. Let's just go to the next slide. This is one artist's rendering, and this was, I believe, in the hardback version of the receiving. You see that these are like Russian dolls. They enclose each other, envelop each other is a better word. Our nefesh soul lives at our tantien, our ruach, in our heart. Neshama is more of a third eye place, and chaya and yechida are the larger field. Okay, so it'll come back to me. Thank you, Vince. We're going to switch gears now. Let's take a sip of water or tea if you have it handy. And dovetail this work with ancestral healing. And from there, we'll go into a ritual. The first question I want to pose is, we're going to be talking about ancestors. What is an ancestor? Who is an ancestor? You might think that that's somebody with a big gray beard, an elder who is pointing their finger at you and telling you what to do, or I don't know what. What comes to mind when you hear that word ancestor? Actually, an ancestor is not necessarily even a relative of yours. Let's go to the next slide. By ancestors, we mean any soul in our biological or spiritual family lines who have gone before us, no matter their age. Here's a beautiful, beautiful woman, Elise Summer, who was a fabulous piano player. She played, she's a Holocaust survivor and lived a ripe life. And just you can feel the joy coming out of her face. For many, she's an ancestor because she's on the other side now, but it may be that you knew a child who died, and you're still very connected to that child, and they can be an ancestor, often a wise and well ancestor. We're going to be asking and invoking and inviting the well and wise ancestors. And what is the role of an ancestor? What does it mean? An ancestor is someone who's graduated, who's passed to the next dimension, no longer walking this physical earth, but many souls stay in the abode, which we call the ancestral realm. And their job then is, next slide. Okay. In traditions around the world, not only in Kabbalah, but in all traditions, there's an understanding that there's a rightful role of the ancestors, which is, simply put, to look after the living, to look after the living. And that is their role. Now, our work in this field of ancestral healing is to open the channels. They cannot help us. They cannot bless us. They cannot guide us, except in a very vague or opaque way, unless we ask. It's like opening a spigot or turning on a channel. We have to open the aqueduct, open the sluice gate, so to speak, so that their blessings can come forward. Now, again, this may be a partner, a life partner. It could also be, I'm going to say something a little outrageous here, it could also be an animal. I've had people come to me and say, hey, I don't have I don't have any two-legged ancestors that came, but my beloved pet, I'm still bonded to them, and they came to me in my meditation, and they're guiding me. So I honor that. I revere that. Okay, now we get to the crux of ancestral healing, and that's about families. Let's go to the next slide. A family in this work is a resonant field, and that means it's all connected. I have my body, but my larger body is my family. Now, I have some really trouble in my family of people that won't even talk to me, yet they're part of my field. And I'm working with that as much as I can, because when any member or part of a family or a family story is lost or cut off, the entire family suffers. the entire family suffers consciously or unconsciously. And next in our module 2, I'll be telling you stories about that, how that is possible, where people who've been left behind or excommunicated or disowned or just forgotten about, or they were killed in a war and never seen again. We don't know what happened to them. That affects the entire body politic, so to speak, the entire resonant field of the family. Okay, let's keep going. A family's painful patterns and unresolved traumas can become frozen in time, trapped in the unconscious field of a family. That's just another way of saying what I've been saying. So let's take a breath. You might be having some thoughts about your own family right now. And it's important to just come back into our bodies. Let's also make sure that we know what we're talking about. What is trauma? What does it mean that a trauma can become frozen in time? We'll be talking about the neuroscience of that in the next module, but let's look for now at what we mean by trauma. Vince, yeah, there we go. Okay, so trauma is a Greek word that means wound. Any deeply distressing life experience that overwhelms our coping capacities. We're living in an era of profound war and killing, bloodshed. Right now, we're in a trauma field. We have distressing life experiences that overwhelm the people in the war zone, but because we're all connected, they also might feel like they're overwhelming your own coping capabilities. My friend Resma Menachem says, trauma is anything the body perceives as too much, too fast, too soon. That could be a boundary violation. It could be a car coming at me. It could be, God forbid, it could be a bomb. And every one of us has gone through this. Okay, has gone through these things, small t and large t traumas that we have to metabolize. We've got to bring them back into consciousness and metabolize and integrate them. And like we said before, alchemize them, transforming these injuries into wisdom, into awareness. So what happens when we have trauma that gets passed on? And we know now from science that there is such a thing as intergenerational trauma. Let's go to the next slide. Intergenerational trauma occurs when a family's prolonged stress, suffering, or hidden or unresolved traumas get transferred across generational lines. Okay, so what do we do about this? What are we here for? To state these things is not enough. We want to know, what can we do as agents of healing? Let's go to the next slide. When we engage in ancestral healing rituals and meditations, we open the channels. We open these secret imaginal channels, allowing frozen energy to flow and coherence in the family field to be restored. Friends, we're going to be starting that now. And how we do that is through prayer and ritual and deep meditation. And that allows us to undo these traumatized places through not through thinking about it or just talking about it, but through working on it in the imaginal realm. This is a term that was coined by André Corbin, the great French philosopher who was also a Sufi, an Arabic scholar and a Sufi scholar. And then he was a friend of Jung's. We go into these imaginal realms. Many of you already know what I'm talking about, but we'll do one more slide finally, and then we'll really start to do the work. The imaginal realm is a sphere that is not less real, but more real than our so-called objective reality, and whose generative energy can change the course of events in this world. Okay. Let's take a breath. Come back to me. And I want everyone to, hopefully you have something to sip on. And we'll take a stretch for a moment. Please just stand if you would like and stretch however your body is asking you to right now, because that was a big mouthful, a big brainful. And for our ritual meditation, this will be guided. I'm going to light a candle and sing the invocation to signify, the candle signifies that we will be moving into another realm of consciousness. And as I do this, I would ask that you call to mind a question or a situation or a riddle, something, a trouble that you harbor in your heart. This question or situation is something that you're pondering in your life, and bring it with you into this ritual. If nothing's there, don't worry about it. But it could be something personal, it could be something collective. And then we'll light our candle. I like this for all of us. L'shem yichud kudsha brichu. L'shem yichud kudsha brichu. Ushachin te B'tchilu urchimu liyachet Shem Yod He B'vav He B'tchilu urchimu liyachet Shem Yod He B'vav He. We do this for the sake of unification of all of the broken fragments in us, in our families, in the world. We come before you, Holy One, with pure intentions, with love, with awe, with humility, for the sake of healing. Amen. Would you please get comfortable? Would you please drop your breath, focusing on the letting go and letting down into Mother Earth like we did, feeling her beneath your feet. If you're lying down, feel her beneath your whole body. And drop your plumb line down, drop your roots down deep, moving far and wide below the surface of the earth. Breathing, relaxing. Bring your awareness at the same time. You have roots below, but at the same time, you raise up through the trunk of your body to the space above the crown of your head. And imagine that little trap door or skylight is opening up there. With your inhalation, bring your attention all the way up. Sense the stars and the planets above you, far beyond, and the heavenly realms, far beyond, that we know are there. Relaxing into yourselves. Feel the connection between heaven and earth, and calmer now and quiet. Feeling safe with my voice, following my voice with an alert mind as your body keeps relaxing. Very good. With a relaxed body, I want you to bring yourself to a door. Any size door, any color door. See which door appears to you. What does it look like? You're standing in front of a door and you're just noticing that door. Does it have a knocker? Does it have a bell? Does it have a window in it? Is it old or new? Wooden or metal? Standing in front of the door, see yourself grounded and alert. You may be bringing with you your question or a situation, a problem, holding it in your heart. And when you're ready, and not before, to go to the other side of that door where the ancestral realm is, the abode of the ancestors, I want you to knock or ring 3 times on that door before opening it. Knock or ring 3 times. To let them know you are preparing to come in. And when you're ready, push the door open and step over the threshold. Closing the door behind you. You stand in an empty space, but before you, you notice that there are 2 or more columns, hallways. Long, long hallways leading back into time. Each column, each hallway is another one of your lineages, your bloodlines, your mother's side, your father's side, perhaps other families that you have joined in your lifetime. And you're breathing, you're relaxed, you're fully present and grounded. Here is the abode of your ancestors. Some are relatives, and some are teachers. There are other lineages. There might be friends here, teachers that you've had that you feel bonded with, perhaps even historical figures with whom you feel genuinely connected. In some cases, like I said, there might be beloved souls of animals who are bonded to you and to whom you are bonded. So you're breathing and you're just standing very comfortably. Now, with all the sincerity in your heart, make an invitation to a well and wise soul now to come forward. And by that, I mean that some souls have carried their traumas into their afterlife, but some are alive and well and wise. And I want you to invite in a soul, one, if possible, maybe 2 will come, but you're inviting a well and wise soul to come forward who can perhaps speak to your question or situation that you've been pondering. You're breathing and you're bringing a question or a situation to mind now as if you're putting it in the space between you and this loving, wise, and well ancestor. Now, be patient. Nobody may have arisen. Nobody may have come forward. That's okay. But all of a sudden, you might be thinking of a grandparent or a great uncle or a teacher. Let yourself be surprised by who wants to come. You're breathing and receiving. And that's all you're here to do, is to breathe and to receive. Kabbalah is receiving. And if you feel there's a crowd forming, wanting to see you, people who love you, that may be true, but hold that back for now and just ask one to come to you, to stand forward. And whatever you notice, whatever you feel is allowed. Let your heart brim. Feel your feelings. Feel the love that is there for you. Feel the guidance that is there for you if you just ask. And posing a question or just a situation or just, this is where I am in my life right now. What do you have to say? Receive any message or any feeling that is in the intersubjective field, the field between you and this soul. Breathing and receiving. I want you to grab your journal. If there's a lot and you want to remember it, start to write it down, but you're still in the ancestral realm. Just feel and receive. Thank you. And your body and soul will naturally want to say, thank you, thank you, thank you. You're here. There's somebody here. And if nobody came, just know that this can take time. But there are beings who love you and who guide you, who want you to open the door so that they can bless your life. Please trust me on that. And now when you're ready, make a gesture of thanks or honor, a bow, a namaste, a hand on the heart. And when you're ready, allow that soul or souls to recede back into their abode. And you, meanwhile, begin to take 3 steps backwards, backwards, backwards across the threshold, the liminal, the liminal space, the threshold of the door, and close the door in front of you. Please wiggle your feet, wiggle your toes, and wiggle your fingers. Allow yourself to come fully back into your body. Would you rub your hands against each other and make some warmth? And place that warmth somewhere on your body, on your face, your heart, your belly, wherever it would feel healing. And let's now take some time to write in our journals anything that happened or didn't happen. No judgments. Be patient. Write down anything that happened or didn't happen for you. Breathing fully. I'm going to ask everyone to take a sip of water in a minute after you've jotted down some notes. And as you're writing, I'm going to say that I hope to see many of you in the discussion group online. You'll get that link. You'll get how to get to it. And also you will receive a reading list for those of you who want to, totally optional, and some supplementary readings, just little excerpts that I thought would be fun to have for those of you who are studious. If there are any Kabbalah scholars in the class that would like the full Hebrew and or English to the Kabbalistic text from the Holy Ari, the Holy Lion, Rabbi Isaac Luria, if you would want to get the actual text, I'm happy. Just contact me through my website, tirzahfirestone.com, and I'll get you the text. Okay. So for most of us, the excerpt is just enough. Okay, we will come back in just a moment after writing down what occurred for us or didn't occur for us. Let's have a sip of water, l'chaim to everybody, which means to life. And then we'll come back together. Our candle for our ritual is going to be blown out now as we come back start transitioning back into our day and into conversation. Thank you all for making the journey with me. We'll meet there again soon. Okay. If Carolyn is in the house, I'd love to hear from you.
Okay, right there. Oh God, I have a needy dog. Excuse me.
That's a grounding force.
I'm so sorry. I have a very needy dog. Okay. That was so delicious. So what you are saying to me reminds me of opening up the treasure chest of mystical imagination, of what it is to imagine. Let me just say that imagination is often associated with fiction.
Yes.
And I want to just have a disclaimer here.
Yes.
That is such a misnomer, because that's the last thing our imagination is.
Yes.
It means to image and to focus our creative energies on a path over here, on a path that we haven't yet walked or we haven't yet considered. And I mean, think of everything that we require our imagination to do anything, to imagine what we're going to wear in the morning, to imagine what can be, to imagine. And that my experience is most people utilize their imagination to terrify themselves. Am I not right? To imagine all the horror that could happen, all the bad things that might happen. And I give you the therapeutic generation to imagine, oh my God, what if I just can't survive? What if I can't do this? What if I fail? And they imagine every kind of possible scenario. But to use their imagination to think, what is the holy world like? What are the possibilities? Is it even possible that, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I think that if we let go to the imaginal dimension, and we are sometimes shocked by what occurred, what was the gift was given, our dream is the imaginal realm, and the ego is not in control of it, which is why there's so much wonder and information that can come through. It's when our egos relax that we can tap this dimension. And that's what the great healers say, is like Cynthia Bourgeault says, we can literally change the course of events in our lives
Yes.
by imagining something different. It's like we're undoing the brain's patterns,
Right.
and everything gets fluid. And that's where we're going.
And I think I need to build on that, because why does it change things? And because it engages the laws of creation differently.
That's right.
As I say to people, you can change the course of your life by substituting a different vocabulary. You can't imagine how powerful the use of one word is. And in my experience, what I realized quite some time ago was that the blockage of healing for so many people was that their vocabulary was so militant.
Mm,
It was so filled with warrior language
yes.
and vengeful language and resentment, that that's how they spoke to themselves all
Yes.
the time. And so they didn't realize that that's what they were imaging were battles in
Yes.
themselves all the time.
Let me just say, I just read this somewhere, and it had to do with the war, that one of the many wars that are going on right now. And somebody really brilliant, it was a general who said, what we have here is a failure of imagination, because they keep repeating the same cycle again and again of war and vengeance and being attacked and vengeance, and like that horrible cycle that is so archaic. And the general himself was saying, this is a failure of imagination. I thought, bingo.
And it's yes, because they cannot imagine a solution that doesn't include killing,
That's right.
that doesn't include the destruction of the other. And we are now living in a world where that polarity is simply unsustainable.
That's right.
That the solution to the problem is, it's not a problem, Tirzah, it's a predicament. It's a predicament that now involves the whole world.
Yeah.
And that killing is not a solution to anything. The destruction of all these people is not going to result in peace. It never has, and it never will. And somehow, and what's worse is realizing that the people in charge are doing it for themselves.
Yeah.
They're not really doing it
For
for
the
a
good
high.
of their people.
So they can't imagine not being driven by fear. But what if they were driven by wisdom? What if they were actually driven by the higher resources that are available? And I mean, all a person has to do is take conflict in their own life,
Yeah, that's right.
in which they're so used to being combative,
Mm-hmm.
and then say, how else can I imagine myself handling this? How else can I imagine myself handling this? What if I wasn't combative? You have to go through the ego's toolbox, which is pride and hubris and
That's right. But there's another piece to it, and that has to do with how trauma seats itself in our nervous system. Because when we've gone through trauma and we haven't metabolized it, as soon as that thing comes into our space, we immediately punch back. We can't do otherwise, because we're programmed, our stress hormones are programmed to fight back, because they're in hyper arousal, they're in hyper vigilance. And so we'll be talking about this in the course, that a lot of us are traumatized people. Our people have been traumatized, our ancestors were traumatized, and we have inherited that don't look at me like that.
yes, also
And
taught. That is also taught. We are taught from the get-go to be afraid of anyone who's not like us.
yes,
And that is not rooted in ancestral trauma. That's rooted in racism. And that's rooted in bigotry. And that's you
absolutely,
can't
absolutely.
always blame ancestral. My family members, a lot of them were killed by the Nazis. I don't bring that up. That's gone, right? Baloney. I'm here in the present time, and I'm very much aware of the present time, not horror that is constantly being fed in our news cycle. that tells us to stay fearful and who we should blame for everything. And this, too, is a form of utilizing collective ancestral patterns
Oh,
and
for sure.
social and cultural patterns, not just ancestral, but cultural, of, of, of hatred and mistrust. And that the constant message is human beings should be destroyed that are not like you.
Mm, mm, mm. Well, and I think it's both and. I think it also lives in our nervous system as a threat response. I'm constantly coming out of threat, and so if you're coming at me, I'm not going to ask you a question. I'm not going to come from the part of the brain that's curious. I don't have time to be curious. I want to. I immediately, lash out because I'm living in threat. I'm living in fear, and so it's a nervous system thing. It's also intergenerational. It's also media. It's a conspiracy of all these different
It is.
forms.
It's total, and it's also. I mean, Tirzah, people go into business meetings now assuming the other person's going to cheat them. We are more consumed with managing the other person's dishonor than refining our own sense of honor.
Yeah.
We assume we're going to be cheated and raped by that person across the table. And so that too is a type of cultural trauma that's we turn on the TV and it's like, have you been cheated? Have you been in an accident?
Yeah.
You're right to get even.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right to get even.
And what we're doing here is converting and transforming that. It's almost like we're, as Gabor Mate says, we're in a culture. We're in a marinade. We're floating around in a culture. We're in this test tube, God's test tube, and the culture has been contaminated, and
Totally.
so we must, in a sense, remake ourselves
Totally.
and heal ourselves at such a fundamental level by courses like this, by teachers like you, like going into these deep places that I call the Imaginal Realm, these deep meditative and prayer places that really start to undo that grip, loosen the grip of these cultural and ancestral dictates. And
I mean, and think of who we would be if we had never woven entitlement into wounds. Because I was wounded, I am entitled to. You're entitled to what? Well, I'm entitled to money, and I'm entitled to get even, and I'm entitled to punish people, and I'm entitled to tell my story again and again. I'm entitled. And what if someone said, no, you're not? You're not entitled to anything.
You're here to contribute to the goodness of the whole and the healing of the whole. And that's what it's a completely different paradigm that we're bringing up here.
Absolutely.
And what it takes is, I've been consumed, I don't know about you, Carolyn, just by data, by reading the news in the middle of these wars, just information, compulsion is becoming like an addiction for me. And I have to drag myself to my altar to sit down, put all my little shiny glowing rectangles away and pray and light a candle and just say, oh God, I'm changing the channel here. I am, and actually, would you mind? I have one more slide here that is
honey, go.
Asking people to do just that in the coming week, to create intentional time and space to tune in. This is a picture of my altar. Your altar might be a windowsill or a corner, or maybe it's you're in your bed or on a chair that you love. I would ask that you maybe get a candle, or I like water because it dissolves things. We're going to talk about fire and water a lot in this course. Put your favorite things on it and that open your heart. And maybe you have a picture of a grandparent or a parent or a loved one who is on the other side. Bring it, someone who brings good feelings to you. And if you can, every day, it could be for 5 minutes, just sit and make a little prayer. It will shift your entire day, your entire existence, and will ripple out, and it will really help the work that we're doing. So yeah, that's what I brought today, and we're going to go into some even deeper stuff at our module 2.
Oh, wait, can you give them I think the title of it is, Why is this world so broken?
Perfect, right?
Right. I mean, really? Why is the world so broken?
Why is the world broken? And it is exceedingly blatantly shattered right now.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about some deep myths in Kabbalah. Of course, the understanding is that the world is broken. The world is not a perfect place, and we're here to help. We're here to help fix it.
You know, it will always be broken.
Yeah.
And the great choice of each person is whether it breaks you or not.
Good. Well spoken. We'll continue from there.
Wonderful. Delicious. I will see you for session 2, and thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye for now.